We've been talking on the Yogacara approach of Buddhism, which is the study of consciousness. So we have, this is a repetition. Every time when I start, I like to remind, especially because there's some people maybe who haven't heard about it before, so it's worth going through it for 5 minutes. We have 8 consciousnesses in us. Not just one consciousness. We have the vision, vijnana means consciousness in Sanskrit word. Vision, hearing, smell, taste, touch, which are the 5 perceiving consciousness. And then the 6th consciousness, the cognition, the 7th consciousness, which is the manas, and then the 8th consciousness, which is the alaya consciousness. So we have been studying it in detail, and we've been talking about for 50 hours already, and we have not touched on the 6 consciousnesses. Right now, we are still on the first 5 consciousness. So the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, and the body. These are the first 5 front-end consciousnesses. To know about life, to know about who you are, why you come here, what you go after this life, you really have to study who you are. What is your consciousness? How does it function? And how do we study it? We study it from a few perspectives. We study how our consciousness perceives the world, objects, the modes of knowledge, how do our consciousnesses get to know things, the moral nature of it, the realm of its activities, the concomitant mental functions. All these we already have studied in detail for the first 5. And now we're up to the 6 necessary causes and conditions for the first 5 consciousnesses. What are the conditions for the first 5 consciousnesses to be effective, to function? For those who haven't joined us, you may not know about it, but it does not matter, and you can just pick up some information. All right, let's get into the details. Talking about causality, causation, causes, we have 2 very distinguished sources. The first one is Madhyamaka Karika. It says direct cause and uninterrupted succession, the object and all other ancillary causes. These 4 causes give rise to all phenomena. There is no other cause. So in other words, if we're talking about there must be causes for effect to come true, conditions to come true, there are 4. Only 4, no others. And these 4 conditions or causes include all the causes for an effect to come true. In the Chinese language, 因缘系地缘，缘缘正上缘，系缘生诸法，更无第5缘. Okay, we're going to explore every one of these 4 causes in the first 5 consciousnesses. And this is the 4 causes as expounded by Madhyamaka Karika. But what about Yogacara approach? How many causes does the Yogacara school of thought classify them into? It's the same, but the Yogacara classify them into 10 different causes, not just 4, 10 different causes. So the Yogacara deal with causes and conditions in detail for the first 5 consciousness to be functioning, to be effective. One of these 10 causes, let's examine them. Madhyamaka Karika, direct cause, successive causation, the object, and all other ancillary conditions. Now, how about the Yogacara approach? The Vijnana Matrata, which is the same as the Yogacara approach. Direct cause, that's the seats as basis. In our alive consciousness, there are seats, and sometimes we call that inherent hidden energy in us. We have all the inherent hidden energy in us. the karmic energy in us. We brought forward from previous lives, which has been accumulated. So who you are today is what you have accumulated for yourself since all this lifetime. For example, eyes. Eyes are attracted to beauty, to good things, pleasant things. In the Sanskrit language, we call that zupa. That's the reason why we always want to contemplate. Creative contemplation is azupa smriti. That means you contemplate on impurity. So when your eyes are attracted to beauty, to sensuality, it's because you contain the seeds in you since many, many lifetimes ago. It's very difficult to get rid of. Only the Buddhistdoor 12 stages by stage can get rid of this kind of accumulated karmic sensuality seeds in you. So the direct cause is because why do you commit certain misconduct? Because you already have the cause as hidden energy in you. Why do you do something nice? Why are you becoming compassionate, kind? Because you have that energy already inherent. You were born with it. That's an inborn energy. So that's a direct cause that instigate all these other conditions to make certain deeds, behavior come true. So direct cause sets its basis. Successive causation, we call it in the Vijnana Matrital approach, in Yogacara, we call it uninterrupted succession of causation. What does that mean? Because consciousness comes from thought. In order for your current thought to be effective or to come true, the antecedent thought must make way for it, must not interrupt with it. So if I'm thinking of, if I have a thought, my thought is in a succession intermittently, without interruption. The preceding thought must go in order for my second thought to take over. If the preceding thought does not go, stay in there, you cannot have a succeeding thought. Do you realize it? You may not realize it. 24 hours, non-stop, our thoughts is always working and working, but the preceding thought must leave before the next thought comes up. Say if your preceding thought is a thought of compassion, and the next thought, you're attracted to beauty, you're attracted to sensuality, sexuality, then that compassion thought leaves, then this thought of sensuality would come up. If the thought of compassion is so strong that it dominates, your thought of sensuality will not come up. So it depends on how strong your thought is. The previous thought must surrender for the succeeding thought to come over. You may not realize it, but it works just in a fraction of a second that you may not know about it. One thought of compassion could be replaced by a thought of devilish action, whatever. But there must be an uninterrupted succession of causation. So the previous antecedent thought goes, then this thought comes up. So that's a causation procedure in talking about conditions. So the old condition must go before the new condition comes up. So if you have a sustaining thought of compassion, no devilish thought will take over. Because because your thought of compassion is not strong enough, a devilish thought will take over. So that's why you must train yourself. That's why in Azupa Smriti, you know what is Azupa Smriti? Azupa is thought of impurity when you attach to sensuality. If that's not strong enough, the purity thought cannot be effective. So you must train yourself. That's why this Azupa Bhavana must keep on going, training until it's so strong that if any thought of sexuality comes up, it's interrupted by the thought of compassion, by the thought of purity. See? No, next one. The object. What does that object mean? That means the state, the surrounding. The object is what, sometimes they call it objective referent. It could be a person, it could be a thing. Whatever you see, whatever you are my object. Everything is my object, my eye's object. Sound is the object of my ears, of my hearing. So there must be an object so that conditions will come true for the seeing to be accomplished. If there's no object, how can there be a cause for seeing? The eyes cannot see anything if there's nothing, you know. So that means the object. So these are the three: direct cause, successive causation cause, and the object. And how about all other ancillary conditions? The Madhyama can only do it by approximation, only do it generally. So okay, there are other conditions, but the Yogacara break them down into 7 conditions in detail, the Vijnana Matrata. What are these? Sense organ. For the sense, for the consciousness of the eyes to come true, you must have the eyes organed. For the sense, for the hearing consciousness to come true, you must have the ears. For the tongue, you must have the tongue. For the nose, you must have the nose. So there must be a sense organ to be the condition for the consciousness. Next, space. In some consciousness, you need space so that conditions to become true. For example, in eyes, you need a space because there's a space between the object and the sensory consciousness. If it's so close to the eye, touch to the eyes, you can see. That's why you cannot see your eye pupil. You cannot see your own. What do you call that? The lens, what do you call that? Contact lens. You can't see your contact lens because it's so close, right? So you need a distance, then you can see. So there's space as a condition. So there's light. So that for the eye consciousness to come true, if there's no light, how can the eye see? So there must be a condition for such a consciousness to be effective. What's the next one? Attention. If there is space, there's light, there's sensory organs, there's object, there's uninterrupted succession of causation, there is seats, but you didn't pay attention to it. You don't know what you are seeing. You don't know what you're listening. You don't know what you're eating because your attention is not there. So you got to have attention. That attention, remember we have 5 omnipresent mental functions. Attention must be present in order for it to become true. Next, basis of cognition. Basis of cognition is the 6th consciousness. So in other words, take an example for the eyes consciousness to come true, the eyes would only capture the representation, capture the image. But the eyes don't make the discrimination. The eyes won't say, that's Mr. Chen. That's Mary, that's a bad guy, that's a good guy. The eyes itself is just like a camera, the lens, the shutter. But it must go to the 6th consciousness to judge, to know this is blue, this is red. So you need the 6th consciousness for the eye consciousness to be fully function. Otherwise, the eye consciousness only function in a very short term, a few seconds. It only captures the image without discrimination. So you need the 6th consciousness, which is the basis of cognition. 9, basis of defilement and purity. Even why do we have, everybody has an internal commentator on everything they see. You look at a ball game on TV, and you attach a lot of your opinion to it. Some are good, some are bad, some are biased. Almost everything is biased because you see the things as you see it, I see the things as I see it. So sometimes It's a defilement. It's distorted. Sometimes it's not distorted. So that's the seventh consciousness, which is the ego consciousness. You're egoistically attaching your internal commentary on everything you see, everything you listen to. That's why we create a lot of mental afflictions. That's why we have jealousy, hatred, greediness, because everything we see, we attach our opinion to it. That's been happening since, many, many lifetimes ago. You have that basis for defilement. That's always a condition that's present in your first five consciousness. You may not know about it. Now the Buddha pointed out. You see how detailed the Buddha point out things to us? The Buddha said, try to know yourself. Not just say, I understand myself. But how? The Buddha said, understand yourself, first of all, through every bit of your consciousness. Through your eyes, your ears, your nose. How does the internal six consciousness work? The seven ego consciousness work? How does storage consciousness work? At this point, you should know that Buddhism is not blind faith. It's an understanding of universal functioning relationship. How everything works together. Last but not least, fundamental basis. How does all these things store? How does this work as an aggregate? There must be a storage. Where's the home that store all these things? You got a home, right? There's a home. That's the fundamental basis. That's alaya consciousness. That's the fundamental basis that you roll in your reincarnation, in your samsara, in your life and death. When all these things die, your eyes, your ears, your nose, your body, when all these things dies, what's going to happen? That means you don't exist anymore. If, quote unquote, that you, that identity, just for the sake of calling it I, what is that I if I die? Where does it get stored? If I die, everything would leave. There's no more I, then where do you come from before? You must come from something that is a continuity to this. And this continuity required a fundamental basis so that you have a continuity of life and death. If you don't believe in afterlife, not to say the profundity in the analysis of life and death, if anybody who does not believe in the next life, or who believes that if I'm gone, that's it. If that's the approach to the philosophy of life, to the value of life, that is extremely dangerous for the society. You know why? If I don't have an afterlife, I can do what I want, as long as I can please my senses. I can kill, I can steal, I can do whatever as long as it pleases my senses right now. I don't care about what happened. That's extremely dangerous. That is without consideration of causality. Causality happens not only in this life, it's in the whole horizon of past, present, and future. And your present is not just of the present life, of your previous life, of your future life, if you still have to roll into samsara. The Buddha has stopped samsara. The Buddha told us to stop samsara, to go into nirvana. So these are the conditions that must be present for the first five consciousness to be functioning, to be effective. Why do we have to study all these? Why? You think about it. Why did the Buddha point us in detail about these? And we are studying right now only the first five consciousness. Let's just consider I consciousness, the vision consciousness. The vision consciousness requires all of these so that your eyes can see. What happens if you don't have space? Can you see your own contact lens? There's no space between your eye, your pupil, and that contact lens. You can't see it. If there's no light, can you see? No. If there's no attention, can you see? No. If there's no object, what are you seeing? If there's no uninterrupted succession of causation, that means I look at this lantern, if I'm so fixed onto it that my consciousness is only attached to there, how can I see you? You're there, right? So it has to be, I have to stop this preceding, antecedent, seeing, so that I can turn to you to see you. So if there's no seated spaces, if my vision actually has no vision spaces at all in my light consciousness, how can I see? So all these 10 conditions must come true in order for your eye consciousness to be effective. What happened for a blind person? He actually have lost the functioning of the eye sensory organ. That means he has problem in sense organ. If a person is blind, he lost his sense organ. Condition 4 is not functioning, he can't see. If a person lost his eardrums, no more, then he has no sense organ of the ears, he can listen. The first 5 are very simple consciousnesses. When you go to the 6 consciousnesses, it's a lot more complicated. When you go to the 7, it's a lot more complicated. When you go to the store consciousness, it's a lot more complicated. We're only dealing with the first 5, and we've been talking for 60 hours already. But we require such an amount of time. It's more than just a psychology 101. It's a psychology 101 up to 565. It's 5 years. I mean, we just summarize everything so simple so that we can understand it. So the eye consciousness requires the 10 conditions, right? Let's examine each of the 5 consciousness in relation to this 10 conditions. Let's see how we do it. I've done a chart in here. Does it look complicated to you? 1 to 8 are the 8 consciousnesses, and the vertical ones it's the conditions, are the conditions. So these are the conditions: seats and spaces, uninterrupted succession of causation, object, sense organ, space, light, attention. All these are the conditions. The first consciousness is eyes, and they need all the 10 conditions. The ears. What do the ears don't need? The ears don't need light, right? Your ears need light to listen? No. How about, but the ears require all the others. How about, now this is the eyes, the ears, the nose. The nose required light to smell? No. The nose requires space to smell? No. You can stick anything to the nose. You don't require a distance to smell it. If you have a distance, it's okay. But if you don't have a distance, the nose still can smell, right? How about the tongue? The tongue don't require space. It sticks onto your tongue and you can still taste it, right? The tongue requires light to taste something? No. How about the body? The body, touch, you don't need a space to touch, right? You know, it's all attached to it, no space. The body requires light to touch? No. How about the 6th consciousness? The 6th consciousness is within you, the mentality. The mentality don't require a sense organ, don't require space, don't require light. It's just a mentality there. Some people say the brain actually is related to the body. The brain only relates to part of the 6th consciousness, but the 6th consciousness is not the brain. But the brain is part of the 6th consciousness. So don't say the brain is not the 6th, it's part of the 6th. Because the 6th relates to all, relates to the eye, the ear, the nose, the taste, the body, everything together. How about the ego consciousness? The ego consciousness certainly don't need the sense organ, don't need space, don't need light, does not need the cognition part of it. Now, does not need, because it itself is defilement and purity, so it doesn't need that. Now, for the first 5, we're studying it. For the 6, 7, and 8, you may not be familiar with what I'm talking about right now. I'm just throwing in the 6 and 7 and 8. Actually, we haven't touched that part yet. But I'm just throwing it in there so that you can understand the relationship between the 10 conditions and each of the consciousnesses. We still have to study the 6, the mono, the 7, the manas, the 8, the alaya. So we just think about it now. We don't need to go into detail. But we need to go from 1 to 5. You know that from 1 to 5, each one of the consciousness required a little different conditions. These are the necessary conditions. If you're deficient in some of these conditions, your consciousness don't work. So, what do you learn from all this? You see how valuable your eyes are? How valuable your ears are? If any one of this does not exist, your eyes won't work. So you should appreciate what you've got. You've got healthy eyes. You've got healthy ears. You put values on yourself. You have a lot of value because you have all these conditions. Appreciate what you've got. I remember I heard a story. There was an Indian boy. He was living in a poor village. He didn't have any shoes to wear. He was going around barefooted, no shoes to wear, a poor village. He went into the city, and he was always, jealous of children who wear good shoes, and he always wanted a pair of shoes. He went into the city, and all of a sudden he was obsessed in the jealousy of not having shoes to wear and jealous of those who have shoes. And then suddenly there was someone walking around, another boy. He was limping with only 1 foot, didn't wear anything. He was putting so values on shoes until he saw the next person who didn't have even legs to wear shoes. And all of a sudden he got enlightened. Oh, I still have my feet, my legs. But this boy didn't have any, he couldn't wear anything. It was so unfortunate that he didn't even have limbs. So you should appreciate what you've got. All right. So these are the necessary conditions for the production of consciousness. How do we get to know things? How do the eyes see? So how do the first 5 consciousnesses get to know and think about the perceived objects? How do we see things? Now, we analyze it first from the perspective of the perceiving. Not of the object, of the perceiving first. How do we get to know things? From direct veridical perception. You know what that means? The first 5 perceptual consciousness give a truthful picture of reality. You see an apple. So you see an apple, I see you, I see this whole hall. That is a direct veridical perception. It's not distorted, right? Everybody see this. This is a knowledge from direct veridical perception. This is what's happening right here and now. This is what you see. That's how we get to know things, to see things. I see this computer. That's a computer. Direct veridical perception. But there are other methods of knowing and see things, though. What are these methods? Knowledge from inference. You postulate. I see smoke in there, and I postulate. I know that there could be a fire in there, but I didn't see the fire. And I know there's no smoke without fire. So I see smoke, but I didn't see fire, but I know there's a fire in there. But I didn't see any smoke, any fire, so that's not from direct veridical perception. That's only from inference. You guess, your guesswork. And sometimes the guesswork is true, and sometimes it may not be true. What happens if it's not true? If it is not true, it becomes a fallacious reasoning. It becomes a fallacy if it's not true. It's not a fire, it's just some haze in there. It's just some smoke. But I thought it's fire. So it's from a fallacy. But sometimes it may be true, sometimes it may not be true. If it is true, it is from reasoning, inference that it's true. If it's not true, it's a fallacy. The fourth knowing is from saints or trustworthy source. I trust my dad. My dad told me that he has a dad. I've never seen his dad. My grandfather died before I was born. So does that mean that I didn't have direct veridical perception of my granddad, that I don't believe I have a granddad? Because I trust my dad, that my dad told me he has a father. And from postulation, from inference, I know that if my dad's dad does not have a son, I won't have a dad. Right? Is it knowing by direct veridical perception? You have never seen your great-grandfathers before, but you believe you have a great-grandfather, right? So some people say, I only believe in ghosts that I actually see. There's so many things you didn't actually see, but that it exists. Because your eyes, your sensory organs are limited in ability. There is some sound that your ears cannot listen, cannot hear, but actually exists. That kind of sound exists because that sound is ultrasound. Your ears are not good enough to listen to ultrasound. Your ears are not even better than the ears of a dog. A dog can hear 2 miles away, you cannot. An eagle can see 10 miles away on a grain, on a bird, on a worm. Your eyes cannot see. So you cannot see. I believe in my own eyes. No, that's not logical. Your eyesight could be fallacious. Your eyesight is limited. I only believe in things I listen to. It's not true. Because your listening ability is limited. So these are the 4 sources that would build up our knowledge. Want a trustworthy source? Did you read any history book? The history says that Canada has been in existence for 150 years. The history told us that, we have Justin Trudeau, and Justin Trudeau's dad is Pierre Trudeau. And I believe in history. You can't say, I have never seen Pierre Trudeau, I don't believe his existence, right? You can't say that. Because history told us this is what it is. So sometimes you believe and know things not just from direct veridical perception. I've never seen a Buddha. I don't believe in a Buddha. But history told us that 2,600 years ago, Buddha existed in India. The world history wrote up that history. Here's a historical Buddha that existed in India. Kapilavastu, 2,600 years ago. He found a method to be detached from samsara, to get away from reincarnation, to go to full enlightenment, which we call nirvana. I don't believe it, but because I only believe when I see the Buddha. That's illogical. All right? So, from the perspective of the perceiving, which modes of knowledge the first 5 consciousnesses fall into? You tell me. Which modes? This one. Knowledge from direct veridical perception. So the eyes can only see the present. Can the eyes see yesterday? Can the ears listen to yesterday's sound? You cannot, right? So your actually eyesight very limited, your ears very limited. So that's by direct veridical perception. That's from the perspective of the perceiving. You should be amazed at how the Buddhist teaching fit together. It's not about worshipping a faith. It's about understanding the universe, the relationship. Okay, most of the knowledge. Now, here, from the perspective of the object, We just examine from the perspective of the perceiving. Now from the perspective of the object, we have the state of real objects. This is a real object that my eye see. It's a real object. And there are also the state of distorted objects. Objects that my eyes distort the information about, of distorted objects. And there's also the imaginary state of objects, discrimination. The first 5 consciousnesses only relate to the state of real objects. They can only see the reality, what reality exists. The eyes cannot see your dreams. The eyes cannot see what you think about in your mind. The eyes, the nose, the ears, the tongue, the body can only perceive real objects. They are very limited, but we need them for existence. Just to give an example on the vision, on the eyes consciousness. What you see, you get attracted to it. You get attracted to it because you have that hidden seed energy in you that instigate and arouse your attachment. And that's the reason why the Buddha told us to contemplate, to have creative contemplation, so that you can slowly eliminate your internal obsession to what you see. That requires training. One of the trainings that required is asupa smriti, or the training of knowing that it's impure on the moment you see it, not being attracted by it. Why did people commit, for example, sexual misconduct? Because they attached to it. They didn't see the impurity of it. Why do people take on the misdeed of raping, for example? Because they are so attached to it, they instigate the internal hidden energy that they cannot get rid of it. That's an obsession. That becomes an obsession. The same applies to greediness, jealousy, hatred, you name them.